We will pursue election fraudsters at levels never seen before, and they will be sent to prison for long periods of time. We already know who you are. Don't do it! Zuckerbucks, be careful! It would empower citizens to bring civil suits against election officials that fail to uphold citizenship requirements. Ooh.
This is legislation that would require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. We don't think this is that complicated. As you said, it's an 80% plus issue across the board among the American people. But Democrats, as usual, are so out of step and out of touch.
President Trump endorsing the SAVE Act, drafted by Chip Roy. You know who he is. We're going to go through the act in some detail, including the one-pager that's going to say what this whole thing does. But as expected, Joe Biden is going to be vetoing it because they love to rig elections. In fact, that's probably the only way that they can make any dent in the slow-burning catastrophe that they have caused for themselves is by cheating. And so now they're going to work hard to make sure that nothing is fixed in 2024. Trump has endorsed this, as has Speaker Johnson. And so we're going to assemble what is going on with this most recent battle over the 2024 election cycle. Here's what Trump said. Says Republicans must pass the SAVE Act or go home and cry yourself to sleep. Woo! Non-citizen illegal migrants are getting the right to vote, being pushed by crooked Democrat politicians who are not being stopped by an equally dishonest Justice Department. Our whole voting system is under siege. Harmeet and David, go to court and get this stopped now. Did you hear him, Harmeet Dillon? Says the Dems can't win on their policies. The only way they can win is to cheat, which is true because they're incompetent and their candidate can't even talk. They do it at every level of government and they do it well. That's how they get an incapacitated moron like Joe Biden elected. And it's not huge swarms of cheating. It's like 10,000 votes here and there. Get tough, RNC, Michael W., Speaker Johnson, and all the state and local Republican politicians. Man, he is just calling people out right here. It's like you got called to the principal's office. Man, I'm glad my name's not on here. You'd be like, oh crap, I'm in big trouble or something. It's actually an honor to be on this list. The Justice Department is corrupt and they won't do a thing to help. No, they're behind it. They have no shame. All I can say is that if I'm elected president, we will pursue election fraudsters at levels never seen before, and they will be sent to prison for long periods of time. We already know who you are. Don't do it! Zuckerbucks, be careful! So, all right, we're all on notice here. Step it up, especially you, Harmeet Dillon. So here is Mike Johnson. Now he comes out and he explains, listen, we got to get this thing passed. The Democrats are manipulating this. We have a big problem here. If there are millions and millions of people who are coming in, and even a small percentage of them actually get a way to vote, no matter how that is, and we see people all over the place, all of the election misinformation denial brigade, they're out all over the place. Nuh-uh, we passed a bill that says you can't vote. Oh, really? So here's Mike Johnson, who says, look, there's a lot of people here. They're trying to lie to us about what the Democrats are saying this bill's about. We live in a country, citizens should have a say in how their country is being governed.
They've also been misleading everybody about the SAVE Act, which will be on the floor that you've heard about this morning. It's a very important piece of legislation. They're claiming to oppose the bill because they say it's going to make it harder to vote, but they know that that is not true. Many of the Democrats want all of these illegals to participate in our federal elections.
Yes,
they want them to vote. There's no other conclusion that you can draw. When the White House announced they would veto the bill, they effectively handed our elections over to all of these illegal aliens that have come here. And the number is far greater than what is being reported. We were in conference this morning. One of our colleagues from the state of Kentucky was down at the Texas border over the last week, and he was there with top border officials down south of Laredo. And colleagues that were there personally witnessed 9 illegals cross the border and disappear into the woods. And 2 Border Patrol agents tried to follow them on foot, and they lost them. And they came back, and our colleagues then asked, well, how will you account for those numbers, to send to DHS so that they can add them to the number? And they said, we can't count them. What do you mean? Well,
why?
The secretary in DHS does not allow us to count anyone unless we can say conclusively that they didn't cross back over the border and go back. And we lost them in the woods, so we don't know. So they don't even count in the got-away numbers. This is how it's being done. Whatever number you think, whatever number is being reported is grossly underreported. I've been saying for some time, I think it's probably close to 16 million. That may be an underestimate, and it's a serious problem. And we cannot allow a federal election to be jeopardized by people who can run into the local welfare office, sign up for taxpayer benefits, and check a box that says, I'm a citizen and I want to vote. This is common sense legislation. Chip Roy has done a an extraordinary job, others have, preparing this, getting it ready. We have to make sure that we don't have an election that is flawed in this way. In states that are trying to catch these criminals, they're identifying thousands of illegal aliens who are indeed registering and trying to vote.
Yeah, of course.
Some states have already done their own audits. This will make sure that we can prevent this from happening, and so we've got to do this.
It'd be nice to do that.
You should ask every Democrat, if they're voting against this legislation, how in the world they can justify it.
Well, because they want it to happen. That's why. We already know the answer on that there, Mike. But it is a good excerpt from the speaker saying this is pretty important stuff. And just run those numbers in your head, okay? 16 million people by his numbers. Do you know that that is 32 Wyomings? So you might double that. I mean, if the number is double that, which might be like 30 million, 32 million, who the hell knows? Who has any idea? They don't even know. All right, here's the SAVE Act. Let's see what is inside this bill so we have some knowledge about what is going on and how it works. Here is the one sheet. It says, here's the plan. Radical progressives are taking drastic steps to alter America through open borders, right? Just kind of water everything down, yeah, and release millions of illegal aliens into our communities by waging a full-scale assault on election integrity laws. Says the problem, since taking office, Joe Biden's administration has released at least 4.6 million illegals into the country with 1.8 million known gotaways. In many states, these illegal aliens are eligible for driver's licenses and other benefits, right? They get them everywhere. And there's ample opportunities to illegally register to vote in federal elections because you have a driver's license. In some jurisdictions, non-citizens are even able to vote in local elections, right? So they say, we're going to give you a ballot. You can only vote in local elections. Don't mark up the federal elections because you can't vote there. But you can vote in local elections, but it's on the same ballot. So they give them the same ballot. While only U.S. citizens can legally vote in federal elections, federal law has generally preempted and undermined state laws that require proof of citizenship and register to vote in such elections. It amends the National Voter Registration Act at the federal level, which has governed state voter registration since 1993, to require states to get proof of citizenship and identity in person when registering to vote. Seems like a real shocking idea. I know. Wow. Genius. The requirement applies regardless of whether an individual is registering to vote at a DMV, voter registration agency, welfare office, or by mail. Gotta prove who you are. It also directs states to establish an alternative process for applicants that don't have documentary proof of citizenship but are in fact citizens with religious reasons or otherwise to submit signed attestations, and then that can go to election assistance commissions that then makes an official determination. So it's like a process. Now, it also directs the states to provide reasonable accommodations for disabled Americans that have discrepancies. And so it would require states to establish a program to remove non-citizens from their existing voter rolls. How they get on there in the first place, who knows? And gives states a no-cost access to DHS and Social Security Administration databases to do it. So every state, purge your rolls. Think the Democrats want that? Obviously not. It would empower citizens to bring civil suits against election officials that fail to uphold citizenship requirements. Ooh. And it would expand the NVRA's existing private right of action and add penalties for election officials that register non-citizens to vote in federal elections. It also directs the Election Assistance Commission to promptly update any guidance associated with the SAVE Act and streamline things by following the Paperwork Reduction Act. So all of that coming from Chip Roy. Now, of course, Biden promises to veto all of that because they love rigged elections. Here's what Mike Johnson shared. He says, it should alarm every American that the sitting president of the United States, who has opened our border to over 9 million illegals, just announced that he would veto our bill to prevent non-citizens from voting. And ultimately, this is what this is about. The idea that both of these things are going to happen right now. In other words, the House is going to pass this and the Senate's going to pass this, and this would go in and be signed by Joe Biden is obviously not going to happen. Joe Biden can't even talk right now. So it's about creating a wedge. In politics, you got to create a wedge issue. This is a pretty interesting one. Why are non-citizens voting? How does that poll? Do average Americans endorse that idea? Or do they support this idea that only citizens should vote or not? And so they're just creating this. They're calling it the SAFE Act and Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. And now Biden just opposes it. So it says the administration strongly opposes the SAVE Act. They say it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. Oh, okay. But it's also illegal to come across the border illegally. That's the point. They don't care. And it's a federal crime punishable by prison and fines, just like coming across the border illegally. They don't care. So they did that illegally. So what do you think is going to prevent them from voting? The alleged justification for this bill is based on easily disproven falsehoods. Hopefully they do that for us. Let's see. Oh, I guess they didn't. Making a false claim of citizenship or unlawfully voting in an election is punishable by removal from the United States. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. You might remove them, which you're not going to do. And we know that you're not going to do because you're not doing it? Got it. States already have effective safeguards in place to verify voters' eligibility and maintain the accuracy of voter rolls. No, they don't, obviously, because we can't check in with Social Security Administration or Homeland to verify. So we want to do that, and the states would now have access to do that. This bill would do nothing to safeguard our elections. Yeah, it would. It would make sure that only citizens could vote, but all right. But it would make it much harder for eligible Americans to register to vote by showing ID that you need to show everywhere, and it would increase the risk that eligible voters are purged from voter rolls. Amazing. Now, the evidence is clear that the current laws to prevent non-citizen voting are working as intended. It's extraordinarily rare for non-citizens to break the law by voting in federal elections. Yeah, right. The president has been clear. He will continue fighting to protect Americans' sacred right to vote in free, fair, and secure elections, including by calling on Congress to pass the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and Freedom to Vote Act. If Republicans really want to do something, right, so they're going to wedge this back, fix our broken immigration system, they should vote on the border deal that Biden wanted so that we can do our jobs and fix the border. So you see, they break the border, then they say it's already illegal, so we don't have to fix anything. So they're going to get all these ballots to vote in local elections, and then they'll just mark a little box here. And of course, it's already illegal. There's no way, and it's all being verified and blah, blah, blah. So don't believe it for a second. We know that they are just waving people in, giving them little Democrat stickers and throwing them into the mix. So here is Chip Roy explaining what his bill does and how this all works. And he was on with Fox discussing.
81% of voters specifically say they are in favor of voter ID. So Democrats are going to vote against something that 81% of Americans are in favor of? Really?
Yeah, well, I was proud to join with the Speaker of the House and my friend Mike Lee over in the Senate to introduce the SAVE Act. It's legislation that I authored. This is legislation that would require proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. We don't think this is that complicated. As you said, it's an 80% plus issue across the board among the American people. But Democrats, as usual, are so out of step and out of touch that they're going to fight it. They're going to challenge it. They're going to try to stand up for the continued destruction of election integrity in this country, rather than just making a simple statement that only citizens should be voting in our federal elections. We have the power to do that under the Constitution. We should do it. There's been credible indication and evidence of, efforts to recruit people who are here illegally and non-citizens to vote. Virginia had to clean off their rolls last year. They had 1,500 they had to clean off. There's thousands of examples across the country. Let's fix this right now, even as the president has had his lawlessness destroy our borders and import millions of people into this country. And they've even acknowledged that they intend to try to register these individuals to vote using welfare rolls to do it, using Medicaid to do it. Let's stand up right now as America and say only citizens should vote, and you should have to provide proof of citizenship to register.
Well, I would.
Pretty obvious thing, but a lot of people don't want that to happen because it's too complicated. They're not going to be able to figure out how to register or something. No, obviously that's fake. They know they are helping people with this unspoken idea. It's not an instruction to go and get a ballot to vote, but you can do this. It's your right to do it. You're allowed to do this and do that and do this. They happen to vote accordingly, and they're advised not to do it maybe even, but they're going to do it. That's the whole point. So we'll be here continuing to cover it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching. We've got a great segment coming up next. We're talking about the 25th Amendment and why Joe Biden has got to go. That's according to some people in Washington. And so we'll see you over there and back here on the next one.